Hi, my name is Suzanne Moore and I'm a real estate broker here in Key West. I've also been a resident here on the island for 31 years and I'm the Realtor Political Action Committee Chair for the Key West Association of Realtors. Over the last 3 weeks, I have sat down with all 9 candidates that are running for Commissioner and Mayor. Why they should vote for Sarah for Commissioner this year? Why should they vote for Bobby Lurie?
Trying to bring people together.
What I have accomplished in 23 months, my opponent hasn't done in 8 years.
That's not factual.
Okay.
It's not factual.
I asked them all property-related questions, including but not limited to housing, property rights, short-term rentals, property taxes, the workings of the building department, and all things real estate. All these interviews are available on my YouTube channel, no cuts and no edits. If you'd like to watch these, just click the link below, and I hope that these interviews will help you decide who to vote for in the upcoming elections. Today, I have the pleasure of talking with Mr. Wayne Garcia. He is running for commissioner, and so welcome, Wayne. It's very nice to have you here.
Thank you.
So we're going to start off and talk a little bit about why you're, tell us a little bit of history about yourself, your history with Key West. You've been here a long time, just so people can get to know the real Wayne Garcia.
Absolutely. I was born here in Key West, 1960, and I've lived here my whole life. I grew up both on Simonton Street and on Bertha Street afterwards. We still have the house on Simonton Street. My mother is third generation Con, and my father came over here from the Canary Islands through Havana in the 1950s to work here. I went to school here, and then I went into the contracting business with my father. Now I have my own business. I used to come right here when I was a kid to this same store. It was a toy store back in the 70s. And so this brings back some memories, even though it's a new building.
Right,
yeah,
I know that's really great. And so you've been here like your whole life. And so tell us why you've decided to run for commissioner this year.
Well, as a husband, I've been married 43 years. I have 2 children, grown children, and 2 grandchildren. I thought it was time now to give back to this community that has given me and my family everything. And so I've seen some of the things that need to be addressed, even though I think the city of Key West is a beautiful place, and because I knew it back in the 60s and 70s when it was a little bit funky, but it's a beautiful place. But there's some things that we can improve on, especially in District 4. So I told my wife, I said, Angie, I'm gonna run for commissioner. And she says, I want you to get your head checked first. So I went to see a psychologist, and he cleared me, so I'm in the race.
So
I'm in the race.
What did she say when you said, no, I'm doing it? What did she say?
She said I was crazy. But then afterwards, no, she's been 100% behind. So has my whole family, my daughter, my nephews, my nieces. They formed a little group, and they do all the legwork for me and stuff. So they got me this interview with you. So.
Yeah. So I'm always curious, as I have been doing these interviews over the past couple of days, more and more information comes to light. And one of the questions that I think is a good question is it, so you've never run for an election of any kind, you've never had a campaign before, this is your first campaign?
That's right.
So is it what you expected, running for a commissioner? Has there been some surprises, or is it what you expected running for commissioner?
No, it isn't what I expected. A little bit different. I helped on a campaign when I was 18 years old for a gentleman by the name of Joe Babonting, and he ran for commissioner and he won. And we helped him as kids make signs by hand, and right down the street here at the plumbing shop, and put them out. And we saw him go speak a few places and things like that. So I was thinking that. And instead, this is different. It's in forums and speaking engagements and go into the different the realtors put on a luncheon and a different luncheon. So it has been different, and it's been a lot of fun. I can't complain. So, but it is.
Well,
different.
That's a lot of work too, I'm sure.
It is a lot of work, but I have a great support group that helps me with it.
Good.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about some things that affect property owners. Property rights, some things about real estate, short-term rentals, insurance, those kinds of things. And because you're a general contractor in town, you're probably familiar with many of the things we're going to talk about. So we're going to start off with the topic of property rights. And we're going to talk about my favorite subject, which is housing, right? Because we're in the housing industry. So Key West has very little land remaining. And if we're going to create additional housing, where do you think it should go? And I'd like to try to get your opinions about, when you're talking about housing, is how we're dealing with the current needs versus what we already have with affordable housing and workforce housing, because it's always a big topic that everybody wants to talk about when they're campaigning.
That's right.
Yeah.
So Suzanne, also I sit on the city planning board.
Okay.
I don't know if you know that. So I've been able to get a firsthand look at some of the plans that are being presented for additional housing in Key West, affordable housing and workforce housing. Your question as far as where housing can be built here in Key West, and it's a good one because this island is 8,000 or 800,000 square feet or whatever, but it's a 2x4 island, and we're not making any more land. They used to make land. They filled in everything
right.
east of White Street was basically filled in. But what I see though, instead of places for new housing is in Uptown, I see now a lot of demolitions going on and houses being put back, new houses put back where old house sat. An old CBS house was probably built in the 60s or 50s that isn't in Hart. And they'll build something brand new, beautiful projects. But as far as availability of building new housing, the housing authority is doing some units over in Ponciana, and people are talking about this new project at the plazas and stuff, but we're limited, and it's just not much more room for.
Do you think that we have enough workforce housing and affordable housing projects in town, or do we need to be continuing looking for new things to do?
I think that we've done a great job, the city and the Key West Housing Authority, with affordable workforce housing. A lot of people won't apply for it because they either make too much or they don't want to live in a structured, where maybe there's going to be inspections and stuff like that. So they don't apply for workforce housing here. But it's almost like a catch-22. The more workforce housing you build, the more workforce you need to maintain that workforce housing. Then you're going to need more housing. And we've done a great job. And I think if there's some new ideas or any of these developers want to think outside the box and add some, then that's fine. Especially with now with the accessory units you can build and stuff like that. But
well, we can jump right into that because it was a question we've talked about with other candidates about the accessory dwelling units and ADUs, what they call them. So. Some people have said to me over the years, why can't we just put a little one-bedroom apartment in the back so my grandmother can live there, my son can come home from college? It's been presented a few times to commission, never really seems to get any legs. What is your opinion on ADUs?
I think if it's kept to when you build something in the a one-bedroom or you add it to your house, that if it's used for a family member or somebody maybe that's workforce, but it's a whole different game when it's being rented out for a profit. That's nothing new in Key West. From what I was told, after the Second World War, when some of these guys came back and at first they couldn't afford houses,
right.
Back in town, that's why you see those little shacks in the back. They built it for their kids or their sons or daughters. But I'm 100% in favor of, if it works, to put little efficiency units or accessory units in some of the houses in Key West.
Well, we're going to stay on this topic so I don't jump around. Sure. But on the ADUs, because we have restrictions on height restrictions, and new construction has to be built so much higher now because of our climate adaptation, flood insurance issues, it doesn't make sense to have an accessory cottage in the back up on stilts when the house is on the ground. Just number one, doesn't look good. Number two, the accessibility is difficult. So would you go about changing the rules for those so that it could look better, conform a little bit better with the current structure on the house?
So as far as the elevation of anything you build new, I don't think there's any way around it because you have to be above flood to be able to insure it afterwards and be able to build something that's not going to be in danger of flooding when a big hurricane comes. And I've seen some nice projects done where the houses are at ground level, and they've built in the back these other units on stilts. You don't necessarily need to go 11 feet up in the air, just above or a foot above flood. And it can be done with a good architect and engineers to figure out. It can be done a little bit nicer, so it'll look better with the surroundings and more aesthetic to the property.
So you think it should be restricted just for a family member, or if like, you know, or do you think that we could be more flexible with the rules?
I think family members, children coming back, that's fine. Or keep it to where it's affordable to a, if we allow this and we give permission to do this, where it can be rented to the workforce. And
To
the
a
rent,
long term.
Yeah, kept for a period of time. I know they have those programs where you have to sign off on something that you say for 10 years, I'll keep the rent at the market value or below. So, but I'm definitely good for, especially uptown. For building these things. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So we don't have as much space, of course, in the historic neighborhoods, but maybe in Midtown, Newtown, that could be a possibility. So we'll stay on the height restrictions with something that you probably have a lot of knowledge about, this being a builder. The height restrictions have remained the same on residential and commercial real estate, as far as I know. But so the maximum height has remained the same. However, because of flooding issues, new construction now has to be built up. Do you think that we should relook at the height restrictions of residential and commercial real estate? And if so, what do you see that looking like?
Okay, so, and this is why Key West is unique, because in Old Town, in the heart districts, we have to keep some sort of height restriction, because then it's going to throw off, you know, the way the neighborhoods look, and that's part of the charm of Old Town.
Absolutely agreed.
But in Newtown, again, if a young couple buys an old CBS house and decides to demolish it and build something brand new, I think they should have the freedom to go up to a height where they can fit in 2 stories above some parking. And because it's uptown, there's more room. I think aesthetically, and again, by hiring the designers to do it for you, it'll be great. You know. So yes, not multi-story, but a couple stories above parking. I'm great with that.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe so that's something I think we could look at maybe as at a local level. Should you be elected? The other question kind of comes to the commercial space. As we're doing some new developments you see out in Newtown with, you know, the old Sears Towns being currently demolished, the Keys Plaza, you know, that's already been approved.
That's right.
What is your feeling about, you know, more of a multi-story area out there in those neighborhoods? Commercial buildings specifically.
Being on the planning board, we reviewed all that, and if I'm not mistaken, some of the original concepts that were brought up before us was to put affordable, you know, do elevated shopping, parking underneath, and maybe on the 3rd level some sort of apartments or workforce housing. Something's changed in that, I guess, when it got to the city commission or some other arrangements have been made. But that's ideal. That would be ideal if they want to add workforce housing. But should a developer be forced to do that by the city? Or that I'm still out on that, because the developer is trying to bring in the project within his budget and make a profit and make it profitable or make it feasible. And so the city, we need to work with the attorneys, with these big companies like Publix and stuff, and the planners on those for those companies, and say how can we work this out, you know? And so I'm
just
for that.
So just to, if you've got a private developer who wants to develop something, do you think that they should be required to put a couple of units of workforce housing in there, or should they be just, as long as they're conforming to the rules, they should be allowed to do what they want?
I think that if they're paying the bill, that developer should, as long as they're within the city ordinances and codes and stuff like that, they can build it the way that they want. Forcing or requiring them to add workforce housing With then maybe sometimes they scratch the whole project and then we have an empty parking lot uptown. So
Yeah.
and that's I've seen that happen where too many regulations are put on these developers or builders and they just scratch the whole thing and say, well, we'll just leave it
Right.
like it is. So
Well, we're going to kind of stick with this.
Yeah.
You're on the planning board.
yes.
And one of the things that we've been talking about with the other candidates is, and you're also a GC, general contractor for many years, and a planning board. So it seems like a great combination. We've had a lot of people say it's very complicated and sometimes difficult to get projects through planning. And we've had several people cite examples of businesses that have waited 6 months, 9 months, long periods of time to get permits because it goes to planning, then it goes back to the building department, then it goes back to planning. As you're on the planning board, tell us if you think the current system is antiquated, is it working? What's the reason why we're having so many delays with these builders and that are complaining about what's going on? What do you think?
So as a planning board member for the last couple of years, I've noticed that sometimes the attorneys for the developers and builders don't completely come prepared
Okay.
to state their case and what they want done. Because if they do, we're pretty good at it. We in the 2 years I've been there, we hardly have postponed, or usually the postponements come on the developer's behalf. But once that process gets to the city of Key West, to the building department, the building department is going through a certain crisis right now. They have a chief building official, the head of the building department, that's there just temporarily because we had to bring somebody in, so because we had to fill in the spot. The plan reviewer is a gentleman that's tried to retire a couple of times already, and we still bring him back.
Patrick.
He comes in John Castro.
Oh, John
He's
Castro.
the plan reviewer.
Yeah.
And he comes in as early as he can. He works, and the workload for him is incredible. We can't get inspectors to stay. Our electrical inspector has retired twice. And so once it gets over there, that's where it bogs down. And they lose track of where the permit is here, or is it, and it has to check off on all these departments. So yes, streamlining that process would work, and going out and hiring people that can bring in new ideas and new concepts to the building department and say, hey, this is how we can do that. Because I don't micromanage, but I can tell them, listen, let's find a better way to run these permits through and get this done. So
why do you think that we're having trouble finding the right people over there? I mean, we've all tried to hire
Yes,
people.
yes.
We understand the challenges of hiring people. You have a business.
Yeah.
You have people who work for you. Have you
right.
seen the decline in is it the cost of living, the cost of housing? Why can't we find people?
So Suzanne, what I see is this, that we can put these jobs out, for hire across the country, or whatever process they use now, and get a lot of applicants because they say, come to live in Key West, man. Especially young people, they'll come down and they'll apply for these jobs, well qualified. We'll give them the city or different companies will give them the job. They stay down here, they go through the Key West experience for about a year or two, and then they get offered $20,000 more in Tampa, Miami, and where they can purchase. And my daughter did that, where she went to Fort Myers and she's made a life there, and she was able to purchase a nice home.
Right.
For a third. So yes, the cost of living here, the cost of houses, you can get young people down here to do the job, but eventually these young people want to purchase a home.
Of course, it's the American dream.
And Key West is basically out of their budget. So if the ones that stay will purchase up the Keys a little bit further or something like that. But we do lose a lot of talent to other cities, where they say this is going to be a better place to
raise a family. Yeah, it
And
can be hard.
Yeah.
So we're sticking with sort of the housing, and then we're going to talk about short-term and long-term rentals that we're dealing with in town. Is there any incentives that the city could provide to promote owners to rent long-term, like a 12-month lease versus monthly rentals? Do you have any ideas of how we could entice our owners to do that?
So, my family, my brother-in-law, and my sister now, because my parents have passed, we've always had apartments downtown where we've rented. And we've rented long-term, and I'll tell you how long-term. We have one tenant, God bless him, Gerald, who has been with us for 30 years.
Oh, wow. Well, that's a long
30
time.
years. We have other tenants 10, 15 years and stuff. So the reason we've done this is because a good tenant that pays his rent, that lets us know when there's a problem with the property so we can come and fix it, is priceless. It's priceless. Because I've had friends of mine who have had places and said, I get top dollar. But when those tenants leave, the apartment or whatever is torn up, or they told you they were going to have 2 guys there or whatever, and they had 4 or 5. But there are certain tax breaks that maybe the city should consider if a property owner says, I've got apartments and I want to try to, have longer term tenants and stuff. Is there certain tax breaks that we can give those people instead of those that are renting shorter term, or 1 year or 6 months or whatever like that? So maybe something to do with taxes or something like that. But
those kinds of things, of course, have been pointed out that a lot of those decisions are made at the state level. So of course, those relationships are super important with our elected officials up there.
That's right.
So we're going to talk a little bit about short-term vacation rentals. And as we were discussing some of the questions amongst realtors and the board, one of these questions came up, and I thought it was an interesting question, and I didn't know the answer. So I thought, well, let's pose it to the candidates and see what they think. As more and more visitors are choosing to stay on boats and floating vessels rather than traditional accommodations like our hotels and guest houses, especially with VRBO and Airbnb. And we're talking short-term rentals here, like under 28 days, so 3 days, 5 days, 7 days. Do you believe the city should adopt a policy governing these short-term lodging on vessels, particularly located in the city marinas and on city-controlled waterfront properties? And if so, what should these policies be?
Short-term rentals on like if someone has a sailboat, and I've seen those. I knew a gentleman that was trying to build some sort of houseboat to try to capitalize on short-term rentals. We have to. The city has to look into that. First of all, just on a safety front, that you have people, if they have family or whatever, living on a boat, there's water all the way around. There should be some sort of guidelines or regulations on that. I would leave a lot of that to the professionals who know how to write up a certain set of guidelines if you're going to do this, or if there's an extra fee that these people, because they're staying on that sailboat, but they're coming off that sailboat and then using some of the facilities we have around town and that the taxpayers pay for. So that's a good question. I see it happening, but right now I think I would have to look into that a little bit more.
We just have seen a growth in that market, it seems, because they are governed by rules that are different than other people who are doing short-term rentals in Key West. And it has been mentioned that our TDC dollars are being spent to market the island, and yet some people who have short-term rentals on vessels not being governed, not paying any taxes, no rules, no safety. Should we be adopting a policy there?
Absolutely.
So just was a question. Some people agree, some people don't. The number of short-term rentals, and I'm still talking about transient licenses, are now at an all-time low because the Truman Annex transient licenses expired in December of 2025.
That's right.
So do you think that actually because they're so limited now, the price of these transient licenses has now gone to about $500,000 to buy a transient license? We've seen them being sold on the open market on the MLS for $500,000, which is incredible. So do you believe that the city should maintain its current cap on transient licenses, or should they think about expanding the number of these licenses for properties in the correct zones of Key West? What are your thoughts?
Suzanne, just what you said. I think the city should look into adding some of these transit, but it has to be in the correct zones and areas. You know, there are certain neighborhoods that transient licenses or that type of rental have no, you know, they shouldn't be put in because you know, they're more family-oriented neighborhoods or more congested and stuff. But yeah, absolutely, because we lost all those transients in Truman Annex, and there was a need for it. I knew families myself that would come every year, rent the same place and loved it. And when that happened, they were like, what do we, you know, what do we do now? Where can, and some of these families that I've known that have been clients of mine, now are trying to find, you know, an alternative place to stay to come down. So
yeah. Well, there's a lot of vacation rentals around Key West, monthly rentals. I think there's north of 3,000 between houses and condos, and you know, and they're spread all throughout. In fact, there's one right next door to me. So there was a few years ago, there was a proposal made by a commissioner to limit any future licensing on. I mean, they were going to try to limit rentals to 6 months. So it was going to eliminate any future monthly rentals. Do you have any ideas whether you agree with that, or do you want everyone to have equal property rights? You know, would you like to limit more of those monthly rentals?
Yeah. So now we're talking about the monthly rentals.
Yes.
See, the transient rentals, the families come there and they stay a few days, you know, and they're managed. Most of those are managed very well. Short-term or vacation rentals that I'm seeing now around town, and I have 2 of them.
Okay.
Around my house in Midtown. I sometimes the people who come and use these places and stuff, I don't see them respecting the neighborhoods too much. And so I'm in a residential neighborhood that always has been in residential neighborhoods, and I know the 2 gentlemen who have their houses out for rent for that and trying to make a profit. They're trying to make money out of it, but it should. I think we've reached, especially those numbers you just gave me, we've reached a limit where right now, I think the licensing should be, you know, held back until some of these houses maybe are sold and the new tenants don't want to, or the new owners don't want to make short-term rentals. But there is a lot around town, and they change the neighborhoods. They do.
Yeah. Do you think the city is doing enough to enforce the current rules?
I think that the city's overwhelmed.
Okay.
The code enforcement. I have some people that the house right. I live on the end of a canal off of Riviera, and you know, I think their clients are from Miami because I've learned every. I think they call it a reggaeton song that there is in the category because it just echoes down the canal. Yeah. So Angie and I, sometimes we'll go out there and dance on the balcony or whatever the case. But I know other neighbors in my neighborhood have called code enforcement, have called because of different issues, and they might respond 4 days later. Okay. And then we tell them, no, they left already. You know what I mean? So I think code enforcement does what they can, but they are overwhelmed.
They're overwhelmed.
With the complaints coming
so
from that.
It can be difficult.
Yes. Yeah.
The fines too. We've talked about it. You know, do we need to look at the fines of that? Is it another revenue source? You know, or how do we police the vacation rentals?
Yeah,
you know, especially in the residential neighborhoods. Yeah, it's an interesting.
Maybe start a committee and you can head it.
Right. Yeah. Let's do that. We're going to move right along onto another one of the issues that we seem to be dealing with on a daily basis now: the property insurance, the windstorm, the flood, the fire insurance. Everything's going up and up and up.
Yes.
And particularly seems to be this last 5 years, that we are seeing a huge increase in windstorm and flood. It's one of the biggest obstacles to buying a house now in Key West, because years ago, windstorm used to be somewhere, you know, between $5,000 and $8,000. Now we've seen many people getting quoted, you know, $25,000 or $30,000. So while many decisions are made at the state level, are there anything that we can do on a local level, if you're a commissioner, to help reduce the burden of wind and flood insurance to these people?
Yeah, that's a good question, a tough question, Suzanne. You know, I was blessed to be able to pay off my house
Yeah.
a couple of years ago. And so Angie and I said, you know what, we're going to get, you know, the liability insurances. We're going to, I restored that house completely myself, so I know how I rebuilt it. And I'm up on stilts.
Okay.
And so, of course, I was able to do away with a lot of those insurances because we didn't need them. But it is something that's at the state level. What I can tell citizens of Key West or whatever is, you know, do it yourself or hire a contractor, go in there, put the right straps in, the right type of reinforcement, and then have all that inspected and present that to your insurance company and see if you can get a better rate. As far as the flood, it's if your house can be elevated someday. There were some state funding or programs that were giving money to elevate the houses. I did a few myself around town. But other than that, the city of Key West can't control what these insurance prices are. It's just
As a general contractor, is it viable to be able to raise a concrete house?
okay. So on the concrete houses, instead of raising them up with the right engineer to design it for you, you seal up all the windows. You put what they call a band board inside, and what you do is you raise your floor level inside the house, add more to the top of the tie beam, and then a roof.
Right.
And what you're doing is building up, but leaving the foundation with it, because we don't have the room here in Key West to get the excavators and equipment that we need to be able to undermine these houses to lift them completely like they do up north. We just don't have. It's not feasible.
Do you see that happening more and more here in town as a GC?
I think that what I see the most, and what I had said earlier, was the demolition of those houses uptown. But yes, I've seen a few that they've come in and raised the floor level and then raised the roof level, new windows, new doors, and redo the house.
Yeah.
And they've come out great. They're beautiful projects.
There's a lot of customers of ours that are sort of looking in that Midtown, Newtown area at those 1950s ranch-style concrete houses, and we've seen a couple of them, you know, being raised. But a lot of contractors are telling people it's better to demo and start from scratch.
Yeah.
Is that would that be your view?
On some of those, because some of those houses weren't constructed with the best materials, and it was just the time. You know,
Yeah.
They didn't put as much steel in. They didn't. The quality of the concrete wasn't as good. So sometimes you look at a house like that, and you'll tell the owners, "Listen, demo it, and we'll build you something brand new." So,
Right. So the building permits, we kind of talked a little bit about it. Do you believe the current ROGO and BPAS allocation system strikes the right balance in town, protecting our historic, you know, areas? We don't have that many ROGOs and BPASs left. Do you have any ideas of, you know, where did we get them? You know, I know we were allocated some, then we gave some away. The county was allocated some.
That's right.
What's your understanding of that whole process?
We get a briefing from the planning department every so often about the availability of the B passes and the ROGOs and half ROGOs and stuff like that. And so there is a process that they're using now to allocate those. Again, it's just what we're limited to and what we can actually get controls that, you know, and sometimes the city of Key West can ask the county, you know, for some of those, or transfer some. I've seen where some people have done stuff up the Keys and then they transfer those ROGOs, you know, into Key West. So yeah, it would take some looking into and stuff, but there would be definitely something to try to increase, but it'll be
Right.
tough.
Well, it's a complicated system, the
Yes, it
ROGO
is.
process, you know, with
It
the
is.
points and
That's right.
what, you know, where you, what you start with and what you have to end at. It's a long, lengthy process,
is.
you
It
know.
is, yeah.
So a lot of people are intimidated by that whole
Yeah.
ROGO process, you know. So one of actually somebody asked me, it was a question that was brought up when we're still talking about elevation. We've had some heavy rains. The weather now that we seem to be dealing with, you know, we had a flood here in Key West a month ago.
Yeah.
A lot of places had tremendous amount of water. Do you think that there's anything that we can do at a local level, government level, to alleviate some of the flooding issues that we're having here in the city of Key West?
Yeah. So, from my knowledge, there's two types of flooding that happens in Key West, especially in my district, in District 4. And one of them is the seasonal flooding, is when the king tides or the high tides come in. And that's the tougher one of the two, because other than elevating streets and there's nowhere for that water to go. The Riviera Canal contributes a lot to that, the way the tide comes up there and down. One of the main things that I got into this race for is about cleaning and clearing all of Riviera Canal, the Salt Run, and into McKillop Lake, so that we have a better flow of water going through that section of town. It might alleviate some of that seasonal flooding. Flooding caused by rain or downpours. I think, this is my opinion, the city of Key West has done a great job, because within 3 hours, most of those neighborhoods were dry. Mike Martinez and them guys in that department went out, cleaned, stayed on top of the sewer grades and stayed on top of it and had us back within 3 hours. A lot of people panicked, city of Key West. I saw what rain and those torrential downpours can cause to an island. In 1980, I believe, or 79, 80, 21 inches of rain fell within a 3-day period. It didn't stop raining for 3 days. And it was called We Survived 21.
Okay.
And the rainwater went across the seawall by the yacht club. My father was building a house there straight across. You couldn't see and it was all rainwater.
Okay.
And the sewer systems were terrible back then. I mean, a dog could use the bathroom and flood out the city, but that was terrible, the flooding. And since that, and what happened the other day, what a difference. I think the sewer system came through in most parts of Key West. There's still some spots down here in town between Angela Street and Duval Street and that stuff that are still, the water seems to stay there. But yeah, 21 inches of rain back then, and if it would have rained for a few more days, we would have needed an ark, something to get around with our boats.
Right,
But,
yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Certainly we've been talking about what the city can do with the current infrastructure that we have.
That's right.
With, even though I believe there's some more grant money now coming from the
Yes,
state.
there is.
I think there's $1.5 million being
there is.
allocated to our drainage systems, and so we'll see what happens as time goes on. We're going to switch it up a little bit. We're going to talk about one of the things that impacts every property owner in Key West, and a lot of people are always interested in talking about the taxes, the impact fees. So Governor Ron DeSantis has proposed significant changes to the Florida's homestead tax system that could potentially reduce our local government revenue that we're looking at. Excuse me. Do you agree with what he's proposing?
As a senior citizen, and we'll be retiring someday soon here. Of course, I want my property taxes to go down. Of course, I want that cap on the homestead. I'd be lying to you if I told you different. But it will impact us, the city and the municipalities and stuff. But from what I understand, in conversations with some of the city officials and the city manager, is that if we cut a little bit but not essential services, we're going to need the fire department, the police department, and things like that. But there can be some cuts made that we should be fine, because the city has a lot of money stored away. It has $1 billion worth of assets. We're not broke, but we just need to manage that money better.
Right. So let's talk about that. The city, I've learned the cost of running the city is $228,000 per day. This is a number that was shared to me in one of the interviews with the candidates. I didn't know that either. $228,000 per day.
Wow.
It has been recommended that we have a reserve should we have a catastrophe or hurricane or whatever, of 100 days of reserves, which is a significant amount of money. I believe we have 92 days in the in the bank.
Bank, yeah.
So if we use some of our reserves, what do we do then? Are you proposing that someone else said, yes, we do have a lot of assets. The city has a lot of assets. There's no question about that. But some of the assets can't be used to make money, like our city building.
Yeah, that's right.
We have a lot of, where do you see us using the city's assets to make money, to help improve our taxes? So if we do reduce our tax revenue, where is the money going to come from? What do you see? How do you see that working?
I'm in favor of revisiting some of our leases that we have with the different leaseholders that we have around town. I'm also in favor of finding alternative means of revenue. Now, we have that cruise ship industry, which, if you want to talk about it later, but I'm not really with that cruise ship whole thing. But city assets are just probably a way for us to borrow money off of, or whatever, to use it to be able to borrow money. But I think that, again, this island's 2 miles by 4 miles, and even after a hurricane, we clean up fast.
Right.
Because there's not much place, we clean up fast. And
do you think that
100 days?
Do you think 100 days is too much of a reserve?
I think it is, because I've seen this city clean up even after George's, which was a terrible
1998.
storm.
I remember that storm.
Huge trees went down.
Yes.
Huge trees. And I think the city cleaned it up along with contractors and private contractors. Within 30, 40 days, we were Wilma. That was more flooding. There was more individuals took a hit to their properties.
Yeah.
But within a month, they had all the cars picked up and the garbage and stuff like that.
So you think that we could maybe do some refinancing on some of the assets? Is that what you're thinking, to make some money? I know interest rates are a little higher now than maybe it's not the best time to be, taking loans out on any of our assets.
In an emergency, we could, but I think that those assets, let's leave them there. If there's some assets, I've even heard of doing something with the old city dump, and they're going to do a study on it and stuff, and maybe if it can be cleaned up, and that would be crazy just to think, because that was a dump, and now maybe a developer would want it.
Well, I know. There's always lots of questions about where do we, while maintaining our crucial services and our essential services, but yet the revenue is going to come down. Where do we find the right balance?
Yeah.
Let's talk about Higgs Beach a little bit. Were you in favor of City of Key West getting Higgs Beach, or was that something you were concerned about?
This is the question I had, Suzanne, to some of those people that were critics of the city getting Higgs Beach or taking control of Higgs Beach. This just was a scenario. I said, what if the city would have told the county, we don't want it. We don't want it. And what if the county would have said, well, we don't want it either. We don't want it. Who? Would the state have to move in and say, okay, well, it becomes a state beach? Or do we go and knock on the door at the Castle Marina and say, do you want that beach next door? So it was what was the play, And so, of course, I think the city made the right choice. It's going to cost us a little bit to maintain it, or the seawall and all that, but it's a beautiful piece of property.
Right.
I've been going to that beach since I was a kid, and there's an endless amount of possibilities that can be done. And one of the things that I suggested on one of the forums was it would be a great place for a convention center. City of Key West lost its convention centers years ago on Mallory Square, where Maison de Pip is. That used to be our convention center. Horrible. They didn't have any air conditioning. But the City of Key West, I think, would if a convention center where they would be competing with some of the hotels and stuff. But for weddings or venues or for things for kids to do and stuff. But anyways, that's one of the thoughts.
That's a good idea. I haven't heard that one. Convention center.
Yeah, right.
I don't know, it would have to be a smaller type convention center. But on your opinion of, we're asking everybody this because it's a question that was posed to me by, there's a group of people that go up to White Street Pier every single morning to watch and welcome the sunrise.
That's right.
And the first question they said to me when we heard that Higgs Beach was now going to be part of Key West, they said, we're not going to be able to come here anymore because we're going to have to pay for parking every single day now, because our City of Key West makes a lot of money from parking, and we do parking pretty well.
Yes. Yeah.
So what do you think? Do you think that we should charge parking over there at Higgs Beach to make money? What are your opinions about parking on Higgs Beach?
No. I think keep it the way it is, free parking.
Right.
I think, again, when I was younger, you could actually park out on the pier. You could drive out there.
All the way out.
Yeah, you could park out there, and we'd go out there in the evenings and stuff, and it was a different setup. But yeah, I'm against putting any parking meters or pay for parking out there, because
do you think the tourists should pay for parking, or
the tourists
should it be a free for all?
Yeah, Higgs Beach, leave that as it is. If tourists get there before you, then But because I walk Smathers Beach,
yeah,
and I was kind of like, man, now we have to park further down, or in the small parking lot next to the little hockey rink, because all the paid for parking on Smathers. But the city's making revenue out of it, and and we found places to park. But that you never had to pay there before. So,
right. We'll talk a little bit more about some parking, because a lot of residents, and especially people who are buying properties, ask me, about residential parking and downtown parking. Are you a fan of multi-story parking being proposed on Green Street or downtown on Simonton next to the fire department? What are your thoughts on those projects? They keep kind of being talked about, discussed, don't seem to still have a decision, yes or no. What do you think?
Well, we had multi-level parking on Simonton.
I remember that.
Yeah, there was you could park up there, and I guess it was in bad shape. Well, they needed it for something else, and they tore it down, maybe to build a new fire department.
Well, it was proposed to still have multi-parking there, but it was opposed by many of the people that work and live in that neighborhood.
And that's what I've been hearing, even though that's not my district. I've heard from, I went to an AARP meeting, and a few of the people that were there told me, they were totally against that parking garage there on Simonton. The one that's down there on Caroline, it works, but I've been there, and it's empty a lot of the times. Other than that first level, you can park anywhere you want to on there. So how much more parking we need? Do people actually go out and say, well, I'm going to park on Caroline Street down by off of James Street there, and then walk downtown? Well, of course they want to park down closer to the town. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of those multi-level.
You don't envision any multi-story parking lots happening under your watch?
No,
basically.
I don't see that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then just with some of the other big capital expenditures that the city is going to be facing, we approved the bond, and there's a proposal for a new firehouse on Flagler. What are your thoughts? You're in support of that? I mean, I think the number has been, some people have said it's going to cost around $30 million-ish to build a new fire department over there, a new firehouse for our fire department. What is, you in support of that, or?
That's, and I heard that number also. It's a lot of money for a fire department. I thought they were talking about a fire department and maybe an enclosed stadium next door for the kids with air conditioning at $32 million. I mean,
well, you know how expensive everything is now.
It is,
I mean, you're in the business.
It is, but from what I understand, it's going to be a state-of-the-art fire department. And again, I've heard a few studies on, and the fire department responds to thousands of moped accidents and heart attacks or this or that, the EMTs and stuff. But as far as fires, that number is a lot lower because now of the construction industry, because the way we build now, and we build with products that are fire resistant or retardant. Some of the construction now, if you're too close, especially in town, you need to put sprinkler systems.
That's right.
And you know about that. So that's a lot of money. I hope they can bring that in a lot. I think they were given a threshold of $32 million, but if they can fit in that indoor stadium next door and within that budget.
Within the budget. It's all about the budget,
but
right?
It's about the budget. That's a lot of money.
There's a lot of conversations about the budget right now.
Yes.
Okay, so as we sort of wrap up talking to Wayne, why don't you tell us and tell the people that are listening, you're running against a couple of other candidates.
That's right.
So why should people vote for you over the other people that are running in your district?
Yeah. So using a term that I heard many years ago, I don't hold my two opponents, youth and inexperience, against them. I think they'd make great commissioners in about 4 years. But I know Key West. I was born here in Key West. I've lived my whole life, my whole adult life. I have lifelong experiences. I've cultivated lifelong friendships in this island that help me understand Key West. When I was a kid, it was a different town. Mm-hmm. It was a small, funky fisherman, the Navy town, and I've seen it progress. And I love the Key West we have now. I love the culture. I love what the Studios of Key West has done. And I work on both sides of some of the issues here. I'm an artist also. I do wood carvings, and I've done shows around town and things like that, and lectured on the artworks in Key West.
I don't think people know that about you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mentored under Mario Sanchez. And so I love that the art community here in Key West, and I was a contractor, and I've worked in construction and throughout this whole town. There's not a neighborhood or an alley that I haven't worked in or been part of a project, and that's kind of attributed to my years. But I need the citizens of Key West and the citizens of District 4, because that's where I'm running, to vote on August 18th. I need your vote, need your confidence, and I assure you that I'll work harder than anyone else in trying to make your way of life a little easier, the way that we conduct business at the city a little smoother, and work on the policies that are going to make your Key West and my Key West a better place to live.
A better place to live.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. I think that's a great answer. I really appreciate you spending the time with me today.
Absolutely, it's been a pleasure.
And talking to everyone. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I wish you all the best in the election. We'll know it's not that long now, so a couple more weeks.
A couple more weeks, and as a Hispanic American. Mm-hmm. Who has 17% Irish English blood.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
Yes, yes. I did a DNA test, so I guess someone back there was from the islands. I appreciate you having me here today.
No, it's been a pleasure. It's been really nice talking to you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.